Now we go across to Tobago, where we're speaking with Ancil Davis, newly appointed Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Good morning, Ancil Dennis. My apologies. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing very well, and congratulations on your appointment as Chief Secretary.
Thank you very much. And let me take the opportunity to say good morning as well to the listeners and viewers across the country.
Oh, wonderful. So let's jump right in. What's on the agenda for you?
Well, a number of things, of course, we are treating with the pandemic at this time. We are looking at reopening our economy for business. Of course, construction and manufacturing resumed last week. In addition to that, we expect that at some point, our tourism sector here in Tobago will be able to welcome our brothers and sisters from Trinidad. So we are preparing for that at this point in time. Also, we are attending to the social needs of Tobagonians. We are trying to treat with the need for social support as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And in addition to that, we're also trying to increase our food production on the island by making additional resources available to farmers and treating with some of the long-standing issues.
Okay, so let's go back to COVID-19 because March, April is just like the end of the winter season, really. So have you an idea as to the impact on the economy as yet of COVID-19 on Tobago, especially?
Well, the impact is significant. Of course, at this time, the tourism sector is almost non-existent. As you know, the borders are closed, so there are no international arrivals at this time. And therefore, we are largely dependent on the domestic sector for the very foreseeable future. And of course, we are preparing to capitalize on that at this point in time as far as possible.
And you wouldn't happen to have numbers at this time in terms of dollar value, put a dollar value to what the losses are.
Yes. No, not at this time.
Not as yet, yeah. And some of the things that you're setting out to accomplish while you are in this position, anything specific that you're going to be zeroing in on?
Yes, in the tourism sector, of course, we have some long-standing issues and therefore the need to regulate that sector as much as possible. Of course, a process started some time ago. I think it was approximately 2 years ago, sometime in 2017. I don't know if you recall that the entity in Trinidad, the national entity, was dissolved.
Right.
And therefore, a decision was taken to establish a separate entity in Trinidad, a separate entity in Tobago. And also there was supposed to be another entity responsible for regulating the industry. Of course, we have not gotten to that point as yet.
Okay.
So in Tobago, we are trying as far as possible to utilize existing legislations and utilize policy measures as far as possible to regulate the industry. So we have begun the work to regulate the Buku Marine Park, which is, of course, a vital part of our tourism offering here in Tobago. And therefore, we have taken a decision to make the tough decisions and take those tough measures to ensure that we manage that place in a more sustainable and in a more safe way.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you're Secretary of the Division of Tourism as well. So in terms of plans specifically to stimulate the tourism sector around the world is a topic of conversation because, of course, as you mentioned earlier, it's gone from active in some countries to zero, really. And looking at the future of travel for the next few months at least, the predictions are that travel will be reduced by as much as 80% is expected. And this period now in Tobago is a period where we're moving out of the winter season into slowdown even without COVID-19. This is the time of the year that you see less travelers to Tobago from the international market. So any thoughts with regard to a stimulus package for the tourism sector in Tobago?
Well, there are a number of opportunities made available, of course, by the Tobago House of Assembly and in many instances, the central government. So you might be aware of the $50 million made available from the central government. We are still engaged in the processes to make that available equitably to properties within the accommodation sector. In addition to that, I think the Minister of Finance recently announced a $300 million loan facility that will be made available to small and medium businesses. In addition to that, here in Tobago, in the Business Development Unit, we have made available loans of up to $500,000 and grants of up to $50,000 available to other businesses in the tourism sector as well. And of course, businesses throughout Tobago, whether it be agriculture, every single business in Tobago has the opportunity to access these grants and loans. So, in addition to that, the central government would have persuaded some banks, if not all, to make available more favorable terms to businesses. And therefore, I think a number of things, a number of initiatives have been implemented to ensure that the businesses here in Tobago and in Trinidad have the requisite support to weather these difficult times. As it relates to tourism, obviously, we will have to depend on the domestic market, and therefore we await the appropriate time when the flights will resume, and the ferry will resume to maybe 75% capacity, and therefore we'll have the leeway to begin encouraging our brothers and sisters from Trinidad to come across to Tobago for some much needed rest and relaxation, because I'm sure a number of them cannot wait to get back to the beach, of course, doing so safely and adhering to the existing guidelines.
Good morning, Chief Secretary Carrie Roberts here. Now, tourism is one of the hardest hit, if not the hardest hit industry. And as we were speaking on tourism, and you mentioned grants being awarded to businesses and such, but a lot of individuals would have lost their jobs and whatnot. Is there any plan thus far or any stimulus package for the individuals and the workers who would have lost their jobs?
Yes, the same packages that were made available at the national level are also available to Tobagonians at this time. In addition to that, we would have bolstered those offerings, offering our short-term food cards here in Tobago. A number of NGOs as well have been working along with us to provide the requisite support at this time. So we are trying to support across the board the individuals, businesses, and all those that are going through this difficult period at this time.
Chief Secretary, we've been speaking about the economic side of things because that's where our heads go first. But let's talk about the social side. How are the people of Tobago doing? Do you have a temperature in terms of, how the people on the ground are really holding up with regard to the restrictions? And, Tobago wasn't, Trinidad and Tobago as a whole wasn't as hit as some of the international countries. But, still we've been discussing the impact on mental health with regard to lockdown, isolation, and just the whole change in what is now the new normal.
Yes, and of course, the Division of Health, Wellness, and Family Development have been placing tremendous emphasis on mental health issues. We have offered counseling support through our hotline to a number of Tobagonians. But I think generally the people are thankful due to astute leadership. We have managed this situation in Trinidad and in Tobago in a good way, because I think a number of countries, the situation would have escalated to a number of deaths, a high number of cases. For instance, when you look at places like New York, even right here in the Caribbean, I think Jamaica has over 500 cases, and a number of destinations, a number of jurisdictions across the world would have suffered immensely. And therefore, I think we ought to be thankful here, not only in Tobago, but also in Trinidad, across the country, that so far we have restricted the situation to 116 cases. And therefore, I think we are quite fortunate. And generally, the people are thankful. In some areas, there might be frustration, especially as it results to the lengthy period of time it is taking to process the much needed salary relief grants and other grants. But I think generally the people are patient and thankful at this point in time.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I might actually be one of those persons first to come over once we can and enjoy one of your lovely beaches across there in Tobago. Thank you so much, Ancil Dennis, newly appointed Chief Secretary of the THA and the Secretary in the Division of Tourism, Tobago. Continue to be safe, sir.
Definitely.
All right, good one there.